Ladies and gentlemen, Season 2, Episode 13, The Eye of Pincosta, also known as Black. Black! Black! So, I'm gonna go ahead and make fun of something now. Maybe make fun of is the wrong word, but, like, there's a flaw the whole show has had, I've noticed. It's not exclusive to this episode, and I'm not trying to drag this episode down from it. It's just the latest iteration of this flaw. World building, or lack thereof. I actually wrote down a couple of thoughts here. Let's talk about My Little Pony for a second. I know, but of all the things that MLP did right, one of the many things it did right was world building. I mentioned geography earlier, but there's a literal map. And there's like relative distances and ranges and transportation and technology and magic and institutions. And we learn a little bit about how the laws work and the economics work. There's a decent amount of world building in that setting. But one of the things they do a lot is they'll make something in the background. Exposition train existed for a reason. They'll make stuff happen in the background. Usually stuff that's kind of dark or kind of serious or kind of world buildy. But it's almost always in the perspective of it being either the frontier, or it's someplace that we've started to... it used to be that way. It used to be that horrible. So, like, in an MLP episode, they would talk about the mines of Malachor Meg... I didn't write them down. What was the name of the mines? The mines of something. It was copper mines, right? And copper mines suck in real life, especially when they're being done by hand. So, yeah, that tracks. But they would mention it kind of past tense, and we've moved past that kind of way, because one of the recurring themes in MLP was that civilization, I call it harmony, has been slowly expanding throughout the course of their history. And that's actually a major character point and setting point for a lot of episodes. That back in the day, Equestria was a lot harsher of a territory, with a lot more danger and a lot less pleasantness all over the place. And bit by bit, people slowly settled and civilized, pushed back some of the more existential and environmental threats, worked together more and more, and kind of crafted the place that it was. Remember, Ponyville is 2 generations old and is itself unique, being one of the very, very first places that has this kind of confluence of ponies from all types and all works that all live in harmony with each other. And that's actually a point, right? What I'm trying to bring up here is that this show, I don't even know if they did it on accident, or if like this might be an underthought thing, maybe, and because underthought literally means not thinking about it, right? But it's also possible that this is something they were trying to do without understanding how it works, because there's been plenty of other things, and MLP predates this show. So maybe they looked at kind of some of this stuff and said, yeah, let's add those kind of dark undertones to our show without understanding why they were there. I actually wrote down a brief list here. We've got trade conflicts, wars, which just speaks for itself, imprisoning every thief in the country without cause, speaking of which, lack of due diligence when it comes to legal defense, bad infrastructure, neglectful leadership, and a literal slave mine where people are worked to, and this is their words, not mine, without food, rest, or light. Probably worked to death. Now, this kind of thing can work, especially as a background of a work, and it could be the kind of thing that could be improved over time, or be a part of a character point or a setting point, or maybe it could be as a contrast, or like whatever, right? But instead, it's there, and it's kind of, it's there for laughs. And I think that's one of those things that the whole show has kind of lost me about, you know what I mean? I actually rewatched the entire sequence where they were talking about the mine where they work you to death. And as I was rewatching, I noticed little details. Like, did you pay attention to the music during this sequence? Now, I don't literally have the music handy, but I actually have a song. I'm going to play it really quick to get across a little bit of an idea, because the vibe of the scene, and I'm sorry to keep re-stressing this, where they're talking about a mine where they send you to be worked to death is... it's this type of music. They've got this like lighthearted flute going, and this kind of upbeat tempo to it. It's da 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 da, and it's almost all major keys instead of minor keys, and like I don't know, I don't know enough about music terminology to explain it, but the whole time the scene is being portrayed as just, oh no, we're gonna go to the mine where they work you to death. Like, what? And again, it's not really this episode's fault because the whole show has been doing this. I want to know what was going through the minds of the creators here, that this is the tone that they approach for this kind of crap. Just imagine, they're down there mining. We don't get food. We don't get water. We don't get light. You know, it's just like, what? And again, I'm so confused that this is the approach they took here. It's bizarre. And like, it's not played for parody. It's not played like for, no, I just talked about how that's not what MLP did. It's not played for comedy. It's not played for world building. It's not played for plot. It's not played for character. It's just there. I mentioned this to Ross in the Discord. I decided to do a little digging on the writing staff. There was actually a really small writing staff for this show. Go figure. And one of the... Yeah, exactly. They didn't think about it. Underthought. That's my theory. That's my current running theory. But they're talking about... so obviously Sonnenberg is the only person who has writing credit for every episode. They obviously have a few other writers. Usually they have writing credit which says story by. A story by is someone who threw in a spec script. If you don't know what a spec script is when someone writes an episode, usually a very vague idea for an episode, sells it to the studio, and then hands off of it, essentially. And it goes into a big old bin. Sometimes physically, but nowadays it's just a digital bin. So a big old bin, and whenever they need episodes to fill out a thing, they'll go through that, and they'll have the writer's staff all sit around and go through each of these episodes and just think which ones work. And, oh, this one works. So whoever wrote the original treatise gets a story by credit. In other words, they're functionally not the writer of the episode. That's what I'm getting at here. Okay, that's a spec script. So we have Sonnenberg, and then we have someone named David Schiff. Now, he's the only other one who has a substantial writer credit as one of the staff writers, one of the people who works on almost every episode in the entire show. There's a few other staff writers. Most of them only work on like 8 episodes. Some of them only work on like 2 or 3 episodes. So that's it. Sonnenberg and Dave Schiff. Those are your primary writers. Okay. Well, what has Dave Schiff worked on? He's a career writer. He's a career sitcom writer. In fact, the biggest show that you're probably aware of that he's done one, and he was one of the head writers of, was That 70s Show. Now, I'm not trying to cast shade on That 70s Show, but if you're familiar with that show, boy, doesn't that track. Like, that, the moment I read that, it was just like a light going off in my head. Ah, got it. That explains so much about how this show is constructed. Because, yeah, I've pointed out some of the sitcom-y moments here or there as we go throughout it. But I bring all this up because, yeah, Blake Travell's right. You remember the convent? I didn't even mention the convent. You're right. There was a scene where they were going to send off her to join a convent, for Christ's sakes. I do think this lowers the quality of this episode. I think it's a negative to story, for lack of a better way to put it. But really, I think it's one of the reasons why I can't find myself thoroughly invested in the show. Am I enjoying the show? Yeah, of course I am. There's a reason I keep giving out oranges and yellows, which I remind you is very good and good. It's one of the reasons, like, I enjoy the characters, I enjoy several aspects of where the plot is going. I love the voice acting, the animation is some of the best I've ever seen. This is bonkers good. But I keep being pushed out of it. And that, again, it's the Voyager thing. I know I've already said this. This should be one of the best shows of all time. And it isn't. It's merely a very good show. I know that sounds strange to complain about such a minor thing. It's like, oh no, it's merely a very good show. It's so close. Alright, anyway, so I suppose I should talk about the episode proper. So, Pincosta. Naturally, she memorized the entire book all the way up to the V's. Apparently, they've already been to Zulberg, which is something they had to have done off camera, but we're going to let that go. They need food, which is nice. Yeah, exactly, Ross. Metroid Dread is a damned good game. It's just when you look at it compared to Super, it's like, it could have been that good. Still very good. Needs to be emphasized. Zulberg. So they need supplies. That's actually a good thing. I do like the idea that they've brought a bit of royal treasury with them. Cough, cough. And I like that Evo showed up. That's always a good thing. So he decides to come into town instead of just staying with the caravan. First of all, why? And second of all, why? He is arrested so fast that it's like, chikonk. All right, that's the end of that. And naturally, she has memorized all kinds of things on this stupid, the travel guide. And of course, this is the biggest diamond in the region. Actually, it's the second biggest. Zulberg has the bigger one. Zulberg! But for real, I'm sorry. Why didn't he stay on the camper? I mean, I know why. It's because otherwise the episode wouldn't have happened. But isn't someone, like, need to watch the thing? In fact, I hate to point this out, but because nobody was watching the thing, they got robbed. Anyways. So, cool. This is when they bring up the mine thing, and I have, like, about half a page of notes about the mine thing, which I have actually already talked about, so we're just going to right past that. Yeah, max staying. That would have been a worked one. So then they cut to the glass sipper. That got an actual laugh out of me. In case you didn't catch it, it's a guy drinking out of a glass slipper. This would have been another perfect way to tie into the princess verse. We're just walking, we're walking. So we see Stallion, who is now doing a classic hustle. Now, hustling is interesting because hustling is not necessarily a scam, as weird as that sounds. Hustling just refers to being really, really good at a specific thing, and then other people challenging you to that thing, or you challenging them to that thing. Now, you can see why that became a scam, but what she does is your typical scam hustle. Oh, I'm so bad at everything. Chikunk, chikunk. And then she immediately crushes it. And yeah, this is a slow roll. It's a very classic slow roll. Although she apparently also had to cheat to do that on top of everything else, so that's cool. Naturally, Rapunzel is like, hey, I'll offer you all my gold for this, which is a terrible idea, by the way. Where are they going to get supplies from henceforth? In fact, how are they going to pay for the supplies they need right now? I'm thinking too much about it. So, okay, no problem. We'll go with blackmail instead. So they go outside, and I'm sorry, I know I'm rushing through this. What I'm rushing through is a lot of very high-quality scenes that have such a density of little references and jokes that I feel silly for just pointing out every single one of them as we go. For example, Rapunzel shows up and says, hi, help us. I'll pay you if you help us. Help us or I'll oust you to that guy. And like the escalation is a nice tidbit. Then they go outside, and Stallion goes to steal the horse, and Rapunzel's like, nah, I got this. And immediately smooths over that, smartly and correctly, by pointing out a lot of very true things about the horse, which, in a setting with sentient sapient horses, like, that says a lot, actually, about, like, your horse, which horse you get or ride. Like, would the horses have even gone with them if they'd stolen them? Because they're not, you know, they're riders, right? I don't know, food for thought. So that works. Cool. So then they decide to take the rapids. Cool. Yeah, droid slavery. Syndrome. Moving on. We have a bit of a very brief prisoner's dilemma going on, which doesn't work out. Although Rapunzel does actually go out of her way to rescue her and restore her little water skin. Okay. And I do like how this is on brand for Rapunzel. She continuously manages to reach out to people and get them to work, because that's just kind of Rapunzel. Again, going all the way back to the film. All right, I'm with that. And yeah, of course, she's into wrestling. Wrestling, excuse me, I gotta say that right. So then they have a fight with the big guys. Big guy fight, big guy fight. Oh, excuse me. Manage it. Cool. That then cuts to Mr. Goodberry, I think was his name. I didn't even write it down. It was like, hey, oh, cool. We also see that one of his fighters is Razor Blade McDoom. I had to actually look up her name. I'm going to be honest about that. So, okay, tell you what. You fight for us, we'll let it go. Cool. And then Stallion decides to leave. But as she's leaving, there's a little bit of a note. And I love this note. If you're reading this, you probably betrayed me. When did she have time? Okay, you know what? I'm going to let that go. That's cute. That's really cute. And yeah, it shows how Rapunzel is actually pretty much on top of things the entire episode, which works for obvious reasons. So cool. Actually, I'm very with that. Naturally, Stallion takes it and throws it away, which just leaves Rapunzel has to fight. I don't actually remember the name of the guy. He has to fight her all by herself. Fairly good action sequence. I love the crowd here. And yeah, they do make a pretty good team because, of course, Stallion comes back to help her. So they fight and they fight and they fight. And Stallion pretty much flat out says, you know what? You're actually pretty cool and you've reached out to me, so fine. You have inspired him to be a better person. You two go off and be happy. And that's not cool, but I did take all your gold. How much do you want to bet that's going to bite them in the ass? They have no money now. And we don't know how much of a trip they have left. Granted, this is functionally... I just realized the music's too high. This is functionally, you know, Rapunzel's fault because she offered that gold. Yeah, the gold helps. The gold helps. Is the Baron dead? I'm just going to ask that. They had 2 days as of the first episode of the season to fix him. It has been well over 2 days. And Stallion doesn't seem all that broken up. So either she's gotten over the death, or she managed to get him the antidote and then decided to leave her dad. Like, there's a weird gap there, which I'm not sure what to make of. Yeah, I will legitimately give credit, you know, plus the story to the next episode, if they do follow through on the fact that they don't have the money. Remember the lanterns when they first showed up on the island and they did nothing with it? And then later they actually did something with it? Similar concept. Yeah, maybe the Baron is dead? I don't know. Like, they don't think about things. They just say, yeah, oh, we need Stallion back. Okay. I do admit it was good to see Stallion back. She does work well with Rapunzel. This is a generally fun episode. We see Rapunzel in her prime. Nobody really has the asshole ball the entire episode. Shorty barely has anything to do with anything. And the only thing that's a bother is the thing that's a bother of the entire series. So, I'm with it. The question is, how much are we with it? No, it is, Nero says. I agree. The mind thing is a problem with the whole show. I do think it lowers the quality of the whole show. I'm not going to walk away from that. But it's not really a problem with the episode. Sorry, I'm looking at a couple of other red episodes that I've already covered, that I've already given the red flag to. I think I actually agree with y'all. I wasn't sure I would at first because it's not a meaty episode. To continue my usual food analogies, usually red is the kind of thing that I qualify for nice full-course meals, right? In narrative terms, you know, there's strong character stuff, there's strong world-building stuff, maybe there's a big status quo change, maybe the plot moves forward. You know, Queen for a Day is kind of an example of what you see when you think of a red episode. To use the own show as an example. So, this isn't a meaty episode. It's not the 4-course meal. It's a really nice slice of pie, right? I know that's a weird analogy, but I stand by it. Because usually I tend to use sweets for stuff that's vacuous, but nevertheless enjoyable, right? The Snickers analogy, as I like to call it. This is a really good slice of cheesecake or something like that, right? And I still think that qualifies as red. So I think I stand by that. Yeah, it lacks more than it could be, but that doesn't make it any less enjoyable. That also gives us our first red of Season 2. And Season 2 continues to be surpassing Season 1, as I'm just looking at the numbers here. Yeah, Season 2 is actually doing really well so far. Like, way better than I thought it would be, especially given the whole variant thing. Either way, I noticed the next episode is a two-parter, so I'm going to jump right into that. Might be the last one we cover today, given the time, because I'm not going to finish that for, like, a good 44 minutes. So I'm going to jump into it, and then we'll see Rapunzel and the Great Tree.